Okay, so this morning we're going to do a quick video on CyFlex errors. At a high level, we try to report errors whenever there's something wrong with the system. So that something could be that you've configured one of your spec files incorrectly, maybe you've got the wrong syntax in there, or maybe you're referencing a variable or an event that doesn't actually exist, and therefore it's not going to do what you're asking it to do. So those are some of the configuration errors. Other errors that you're going to get are, I'm sure we've all seen these whenever you're trying to talk to a device using EtherCAT, AK, Modbus, whatever it may be, and there's packets dropping intermittently or the device is completely offline. Then you'll get errors indicating that that we're not able to communicate with that device. Sometimes a gratuitous amount of errors. So we have a GUI for this, the error viewer GUI, but for this video we're just going to go over the command line argument. And the main reason that I wanted to make this video is for many years we were using the old method of errors that was developed whenever we were driving carbureted cars to work, and that just dumped the errors to a text file and then put that file in /data/errors. If you typed the clear error command, then that file was gone. I think there was like one backup log. I don't actually remember. In 6.3 we moved to a database, and the advantage of the database is that now you can see errors from much further back, and then there's a lot more arguments that you can use to filter them. So I just wanted to start. This is the command, but with many commands it's good to look at the usage. You see here at the top it says CyFlex 6.3 versions. That should obviously be updated because it's the same for 7, but that was probably put there to indicate that this changed when we went to 6.3 from previous versions, like I was referencing earlier. This is 6.3 is when we implemented the database. So to quickly, if we look, this is our database. If we try to do a less on this, it's going to say you don't want to do that. So what are the arguments? Well, let's actually just start with some defaults. So when you just type errs, it is going to default to show you a couple filters already. One is that it's going to filter since your last go, and thankfully it actually says that here. Oh, and it does say that too. And it's going to give you 1,000 errors. That's an important number that I don't think enough people know, because there's a lot of people who, I'll tell people that it's a database now and you can look further back, and then they type errs and they say, well, it's only going back to this morning. And it's like, well, you're generating 2,000 errors a day, my friend. So that's why it's only going back to this morning. But we put these arguments in here so that you can go back further. And so that's why I like to start with this time and count. Me personally, these are the ones that I'm using constantly. If I'm on a system that has a lot of errors, which, let's be honest, most of the test cells do, then I'm going to use, I'm just going to go straight to this. I'm going to go errs t equals 0. Okay, what is t equals 0? Well, the t argument is an epoch time. I think it says that somewhere in here. Human beings don't think in epoch time. Epoch time is something like the number of seconds, maybe, since 1970. But you can know that 0 is 1970. So if you put t equals 0, you're just telling it, go back as far as possible. So that's why I use the t equals 0. But if you just give t equals 0 and you've got 2,000 errors, you're going to get the exact same output because the count is still defaulting to 1000. So you need to give it a higher count. So you can say C equals 2000, or I'm going to be honest, I just default to 10,000 when I get on a test cell because I'm going to assume it's dirty. And so errs is going to open up a less session. It's actually calling a separate program and piping that output to a file and then opening that file in a less session. And that file is error.log for those of you who've been around since the pre-6.3 days. It's the same text file. So when you type errs, it's retrieving data from the database and putting it in error.log in the data errors /data/errors directory, and then it's doing a less session. So we're just in a regular less session on a regular text file right now, and that text file is on your hard drive. Well, this one's on mine, but you get it. So in a less session, you can do Shift-G, and that's going to take you to the end. And here you can see it is April 24th, 5:48 in the morning, and we got errors going back to March 19th. So this is, you know, what I was talking about. You can go back a lot further. So this is the file that I was just referencing. So this got created when I typed errs. You notice that error.db isn't down here. I've got these other error files, which I'm thinking now maybe I should go over those in another video, but this is the text file. So at this point, if I want to see what I was just looking at, I can actually do a less on error.log, and it's going to be the same file. You can see I just hit Shift-G to go to the end of the file. Now we've got March 19th. I can type lowercase g. Now I'm at the top of the file. These are my recent errors from running a go this morning. So that's how that works. That's the T equals, and then the C equals. We'll do another example with T in a little bit that I think is pretty interesting. N is, you can specify the path and the name of the database query. This argument was made because we used to have a backup error database. We don't anymore. The argument, I'm going to guess, still works, but I know that you shouldn't need it. So optional and not needed is what we're going to call this argument. So we're going to jump to P. This is another beautiful argument. The number of times that this comes in handy is insane. So you can see I've got some errors on this system. Let's say I don't want to sort through them. Let's say I only want to see errors from Dart's data point. I can say P equals Dart's data point, and I will only see the errors from Dart's data point. Now, your other arguments still apply. Let's say you wanted to see errors from Dart's data point from 3 months ago. Well, you could just go ahead and throw in both arguments and go all the way back in time. So T equals 0, C equals 10,000. This is definitely going to give you as far back as you've got Dart's data point errors, which for me is April 16th because I didn't have it configured on my system before that. So yeah, just to review, that is P equals, this is your CyFlex process. It's not your registered name, just to be clear. It's the process name. So that gets us to the next thing, which is a drastic shortcoming if we only gave you the process name. Because how many times have you been on a test cell with 16 instances of comp bar, each of them, you know, doing their part to contribute to making that error database as big as possible. So that's why we have this TID argument. If any of you know why it's TID and not PID, since it stands for process ID, please tell me. I don't know. But this is the process ID. When that's relevant is when you've got multiple instances of something running. So just like here, I've got multiple instances of comp bar. I've got multiple instances of user control task. If all of my instances of comp var were generating a bunch of errors, and I only wanted to see the ones from this one, then I can say errs tid equals, okay, well, I think it's this, actually. I was going to say you can use sin minus p comp var, but I think sin names gives it. But I don't think I have any from that particular. Let's try this one. errs tid equals, yeah. So, and here you can see this process ID matches what I asked for, and it didn't give me all the other errors. So this is what, you know, if you need to get more detailed than just the process name, because you've got multiple of that process running, then this can be helpful. Okay, so what else? The f argument. F is to specify a path and file name to pipe the output. This is where I'm going to let you in on a under the covers secret of what's happening when you type errs. I mentioned it earlier that it's calling another program. That program is get errs. So if you're using the f argument and you don't want your terminal to open up a less session and view it automatically, such as if you're in a bash script, and you want to run a program and then get the errors from that program when you called it and output them to a file, so that you have a log of the errors generated by that program when you called that program, captured and filtered in its own separate file. Then you can do, let's just use this same one that I was doing before. You can instead call get errs and then give it the TID, and then you can say f equals temp, and this was my main instance of comp var, I think. It doesn't really matter. We'll call it comp var errs. And so now if I do a cat on this file, it's got the errors generated by just that process ID. Let's take it one step further. Let's use the epoch time argument and kind of do what I was saying earlier. Let's say you've got a script. I'm not going to do this in the script, I'm just going to do it from the command line, but hopefully you get the concept. So to get epoch time, you can use the date command with +%s. So this is epoch time. This is what the program wants to receive, and it's going to show you. Let's just do this a couple more times. You can see I'm doing it at about 1 Hertz, and it increments at about 1 Hertz. So what we can do is save this in a variable by encapsulating it in its own little subshell, and we're going to call that epoch time. And then we're going to sleep for a second, because ultimately what we're going to do here in a minute is we're going to try to get errors from the command that I'm about to type. And so the command I'm going to type needs to generate an error. The way that I normally do that is I just type, well, maybe, I type some garbage. I don't have a variable called kajadisif, so that's going to make an error from gvar. And then I'm going to run get errs, and I'm going to give it the t equals and then the epoch time that I created. And so practically speaking, what I'm doing here is giving it the time from 1 second ago. And so I'm saying show me the errors from whenever I executed this command, which was 1 second ago because I put this sleep in here. And this will call instantaneous for all practical purposes. So t equals epoch time, and then f equals /temp/gvar errors. So this is going to only, this is going to give me all the errors from 1 second ago. And for this case, I think this will work. So that's the standard out error. Maybe it's worth noting, there are some programs that are programmed to do standard out error, which means that it dumps to the terminal, as well as an entry in the database. And then sometimes it'll only do an entry in the database, and sometimes it'll only do standard out. We like to keep you on your toes. So let's see if this worked. I'm going to try to cat what's in that file. I accidentally up arrowed, so let me try that again. Yeah, so this file only has one error. And that's because my system isn't just continuously generating errors, and so it is only showing this error. If I actually do errs over here, you're going to see that this gvar error is in there twice. Whoops. Because a second ago I ran that command twice on accident. But this file is only capturing it once because I gave it the epoch time, and the second time, like this one was before the epoch time. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. If you can capture your epoch time in epoch time format from a script, which is not that hard to do, you just have to do this, and then you wait a second, and then so this is obviously a silly example, but a better example would be like ESVD star 5.12. For anyone who's maintaining emission scripts, please start doing this. Or if you're running TCA or something where if there are errors, you actually want to fix them. Let's suppose that that's the case. You can also follow this up with a Zenity window that opens up this file in a text format, so that even if these programs are being called from a script that's being called from a GP test that was being called from a script, and so the operator's just staring at a display and watching speed and torque move around and making sure that the modes keep stepping through, he can have something pop up that says, hey, you got problems. Maybe you should look into them, or maybe you should call someone who can. Anyway, the only addition that I think is worth making to this is sometimes, oftentimes we should say, you can, if you're trying to get errors from something like running gen labels, or something that causes a global reconfig specifically, then every time you run gen labels, then you're also going to get all these super annoying errors from ERSpecs and a bunch of other programs. And so this would actually be useless. So you would do P equals gvar. You would give it the process that you just ran. And then, if it was comp var, then you may have to do a little more bash finagling to get the PID in a bash variable of the specific instance that you want. But, yeah, so those are the different arguments you can use with the errs. Hopefully real quickly, I'll ramble some. I just thought it's worth pointing out some of these different fields. So this is the error code. So you can type errc on this, and and in a perfect world, it won't be completely useless, which it is in this case, because that's just not the right error code for that. Let's try another one. errc43. Label not found. Okay, yeah. So the only thing worth pointing out on this is sometimes it will be helpful to you as an end user, and it will give you a little bit of extra context, because the software engineers are limited in how much information they can put in this description, but as you can see, there's a whole paragraph here explaining things. The caveat is some of these are like written more for the programmer and less for the end user. I'm guessing a lot of these things are C functions. which as an end user, you're not obviously looking at the C code behind this. So some of the stuff in here is specifically for the developer. This is another one. This is the actual file that's generating the error and the line number. This is for the programmer. But for the end user, for you, you've got the error code, which errs will give you more information on that. The program name, the process ID, process starts with a T, the date that it was generated, and then a description of the error. Yeah, and that's kind of it off the top of my head. We'll probably want to make another video for the error viewer, but for this particular case, I really wanted to get into some of these arguments for those of you who are kind of power users who spend your life in a terminal because you're SSH'd into another cell, and this is all you have available to troubleshoot the issue. As well as if you're writing scripts and trying to use this from within a script. So yeah, those are errors. Let me know what you think. If you have any additional comments worth adding, then yeah, comment on the video.